Welcome to Newspresso. I'm Kavya. All right, Vikram. One word to describe today's news. Go.
Volatile. I'm Vikram. It's Friday, July 24, 2026, and honestly, volatile feels almost too neat for what we're looking at.
Fair. Mine is tangled. A lot of these stories feel like they started in one place and then kept spilling into the next.
Exactly. And that pattern is actually the story today. Pressure building and then people on every side hardening their positions.
Okay, let's go story by story and maybe start where the temperature is highest.
Iran is basically saying if you hit our infrastructure, we hit back harder. That's the tone here.
And not just inside Iran, right? They're warning that if the United States targets bridges or power plants, regional energy facilities could become targets too.
Yes, and this goes back to a very old logic in conflict. Widen the pain, widen the deterrence. Iran has repeatedly invoked an eye for an eye doctrine.
What makes this feel even more unstable is the Strait of Hormuz piece. Iran says its forces control critical routes, but Western officials are rejecting that.
And the waterway is still being described as open under international norms. That matters because so much of the fear is about what happens to shipping and oil flow.
And markets are already reacting to that fear. Brent and WTI are climbing on the possibility of wider disruption.
The other part people don't forget is the US airstrikes. Washington has carried out nights of strikes on Iranian targets while also saying it wants negotiations.
That combination is what feels so jarring. Tougher rhetoric, strikes, and talk of diplomacy at the same time.
It's a narrow corridor. Both sides are trading threats and the peace process is being held up by a Pakistan-brokered framework that's trying to stay alive.
So if you zoom out, the question isn't just whether there's another strike. It's whether this stays contained or becomes a wider regional war.
That's the question, and right now nobody can answer it with confidence.
Okay, let's move from geopolitics to something that feels very local but is also about pressure and accountability. Jantar Mantar has turned into the center of a really charged youth movement, and it started in a way from satire.
The Cockroach Janta Party, which is such a strange but revealing name, moved from online mockery to actual street protest over exam leaks, especially NEET UG.
And the demand is very direct. Resign Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan.
Police response was forceful. Tear gas, lathis, attempts to march to parliament, detentions. The government now has to answer not just the protest, but the method of response.
That's the thing, isn't it? Once you see students being met with that kind of force, the story stops being only about exams.
Exactly. It becomes about trust in institutions. And this scale matters. Thousands at Jantar Mantar is not a small symbolic gathering.
Then Sonam Wangchuk enters the picture with a hunger strike there, which adds another layer of moral pressure.
Yes, and his hunger strike has now crossed 25 days. He says he'll end it only if the centre guarantees no punitive action against protesters and a meaningful debate in parliament follows.
That's a very specific ask. It's not just listen to us, it's protect us and debate this publicly.
And the movement is also bigger than one grievance now. It's about exam fraud, system reform, compensation for students affected by suicides linked to the leaks, and youth job anxiety.
The weirdly powerful part is that this started online. It's like memes grew legs and walked into the street.
That's one way to put it. But yes, and the government is watching whether that digital energy can turn into durable pressure or whether it burns out.
And it does sound like the state is trying to manage both protest and optics at once.
It is, but the mood suggests the young people are not just venting, they're asking for accountability.
Right, and that line runs straight into the next story too.
Sonam Wangchuk's hunger strike is now in its 25th day, and the health updates are serious. Doctors say he's stable but frail, with weight loss and muscle decline.
25 days is a long time, and losing around 11 kilograms puts the cost of this protest right in front of you.
It does, but he remains conscious and focused, which is why this has become such a politically loaded situation.
His condition almost becomes part of the message that the protest is not casual, it's sustained and deeply personal.
And his demand is centered on protecting students from police action, FIRs and harassment. That's the through line.
What's interesting is that opposition MPs are visiting him in hospital, while security blocks others. That tells you how tense the atmosphere is.
Yes, and his wife, along with several opposition MPs, has urged him to end the fast and push for talks. So there's concern from allies too.
I keep coming back to the July 20 march. That seems to be the moment everything sharpened.
It was. Thousands pushed toward parliament and police used tear gas, baton charges and later arrests. Once that happened, the debate widened from exam leaks to law and order.
And the government is floating talks, even neutral venues. But Delhi police are also hinting at possible passport restrictions for those those involved in violence.
which tells you they're trying deterrence as well as dialogue.
So the movement is standing at a crossroads. If talks happen, maybe it becomes a policy story. If not, it stays a confrontation story.
That's the delicate part, and it's still unresolved.
Alright, moving on, because there's also a lot happening in policy and business, and both of those can get messy fast.
The government is looking at whether to change a rule that prevents airport operators from owning large parts of airlines.
And Adani is right at the center of that, since it already runs 8 airports across India.
Correct. Along with other airport players like GMR, Adani is part of a conversation that could reshape the market.
So if the cap changes, Adani could launch a carrier or buy into one. That would be a pretty big shift.
It would, because Indigo and Air India currently dominate about 90% of domestic traffic.
That's such a tight market. No wonder people are sensitive to any new entrant.
Indigo executives are warning that airport operators owning airlines would be a massive conflict of interest. They worry about access to slots and services.
Which for regular travelers sounds less like abstract policy and more like, will my flight get worse or better?
Exactly. The ministry has reportedly asked a Solicitor General whether the rule could be amended retrospectively, and cabinet approval would be needed for any change.
But nothing final yet.
Nothing final. Reuters, Bloomberg and NEET have cited sources, but the decision hasn't been taken.
The broader pattern here is competition versus safeguards. Everyone likes the idea of more players, but not if the rules get bent.
And the sector's volatility matters. Past airline failures are part of why this debate is being watched so closely.
So for travelers, this could mean more choice or just a different kind of congestion.
That's the practical question. Policy always sounds cleaner than it lands.
And speaking of landing in a complicated place, Infosys is also trying to balance growth with caution.
Infosys had a solid quarter on paper. Net profit up 12.2% year-on-year to 7,769 crore. Revenue up 14% to 48,211 crore.
That's strong. But then they trimmed the upper end of FY27 revenue growth guidance.
Yes, to 1.5 to 3% in constant currency. The reason is macro uncertainty and cautious IT spending.
So the business is healthy, but the outlook is a little more careful than people may have expected.
That's right. AI-led transformation is still a key driver. AI revenues are 8.2% of total revenue, and large deals were worth $3.6 billion.
That AI number is the part that jumps out to me. It sounds like the future's already showing up in the current quarter.
And the company is trying to manage that future with continuity. Ashish Kumar Das has been named CEO designate to succeed Salil Parekh in 2027.
An internal appointment, so stability over a shock change.
Exactly. The market reaction was mixed. ADR slipped on the forecast cut, but some analysts see the insider choice as reassuring.
What's also interesting is that they reaffirmed the operating margin guidance at 20 to 22%, so they're not pulling back everywhere.
No, it's more measured than retreating. Stronger revenue, cautious growth outlook, and a steady hand on leadership.
That feels very much like the mood of a lot of companies right now. Hope, but with the brakes on a little.
That's the pattern here. Cautious confidence.
Alright, from business to sports, and this one has a different kind of pressure. Less policy, more podium. India is heading into the CWG 2026 in Glasgow with a smaller squad than usual. 125 athletes, 77 men and 48 women.
And that trimmed slate matters because some big medal events have been cut out. Hockey, badminton, and a few others are gone from the mix.
So the medal map is narrower, but not empty.
Not at all. Neeraj Chopra, Mirabai Chanu, and Lavlina Borgohain are still the big names people will look to.
I mean, those are serious headline athletes. Chopra in particular just carries that aura.
He does, and his return to the Commonwealth stage in Glasgow is being treated as a test of form after major successes, including Olympic gold and a 2023 World Championship title.
Mirabai Chanu going for another goal, Lavlina carrying the boxing banner. It feels like the core is very clear.
Yes, and India is also leaning on athletics, weightlifting, boxing, track cyclists, judokas, and bowlers. The delegation is compact but not thin.
The organizers are calling it a reimagined or scaled-down event, right?
They are. The budget is far below Birmingham 2022, and the events are spread across 4 venues.
So it's frugal but functional.
That's a good way to put it. India earned 61 medals in 2022 Birmingham and is still aiming for a top 5 finish.
But without wrestling, badminton and table tennis, the medal count probably takes a hit.
It likely does. Still, the blueprint leans on track speed, weightlifting power, and boxing depth.
There's something kind of inspiring about a smaller team carrying bigger expectations.
And the broader arc is about adapting now for future goals, including the Asian Games and eventual hosting ambitions on Indian soil.
Okay, final stretch. culture, entertainment, and then we're out. And honestly, the last two stories are both about being seen in public, just in completely different ways. Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey is taking a very different approach to the myth. It's less about the clever trickster version of Odysseus and more about moral ambiguity.
Yes, and that shift is deliberate. The famous nobody scene is reimagined, and Polyphemus is treated more like a gentle giant than a simple monster.
That's a huge tonal change. It sounds like the film wants us to question Odysseus rather than just cheer him on.
Exactly. The adaptation also strips back some of the relationship web. Calypso's romantic thread is removed. Circe's links are reduced.
Charlize Theron plays Calypso, but the role is underwritten compared with earlier versions.
And the film emphasizes Penelope's steady faith and Odysseus's internal struggle more than the dalliance and temptation parts of the older story.
So the myth becomes less about adventure as spectacle and more about memory, guilt, and homecoming.
That's the point. Telemachus's searching gaze and a chorus of tellers give the story competing versions of Odysseus's deeds.
Which is very Nolan, honestly. Big scale, but also psychological tension.
And the IMAX-centered shoot reinforces that. Critics seem to read it as a bridge between ancient storytelling and contemporary cinema.
I like that framing. Not a strict copy of the text, but a conversation with it.
That's a fair way to put it. It asks what heroism even means when the journey home carries this much weight.
And now to a story where being in public became its own kind of spectacle. Ayesha Khan being detained during the Mumbai NEET protests is such a striking image because she says she wasn't even speaking. She was just standing there with her brother and friends.
The footage from her own Instagram shows her in the police van asking where they're being taken and asking for an explanation.
And reports say she was taken to Wally police station. That makes the whole thing feel very immediate.
It comes amid the wider Chalo Sansad and NEET protests over alleged paper leaks and exam irregularities.
So again, the core issue is the same as in the other protest stories: trust in the system.
Yes, and the public response has been amplified by actors like Ayesha Khan and Urfi Javed describing heavy police presence and barricades in Delhi and Mumbai.
It's interesting how public figures can make the situation more visible, but also more polarizing.
They do. Supporters of Khan are framing it as police overreach against peaceful demonstrators, while police accounts haven't clearly explained the grounds for detention.
Which leaves a lot unresolved.
It does. The broader national conversation is now about education reform, fairness, transparency in police action, and the role of celebrities in protest movements.
And the thing that connects this to the Jantar Mantar story is just how much of this is about young people insisting they be heard.
That's right. Different cities, same demand, accountability.
And that feels like a good place to leave it, with a reminder that a lot of these stories are really about people pushing institutions to answer them.
That's the week in one sentence.
Thanks for hanging out with us on Newspresso. Stay tuned, we'll be back soon.